Pornographic literature is often anonymous. Very frequently, it's pretty rubbishy, it's there for a little while, and it disappears. But there is one erotic novel that has become a classic. It was written by a man called John Cleland, who was born in the year 1749. And it's called Fanny Hill, the Memoirs of a Woman of Pleasure. Now, young Fanny is a country girl. Her parents die. As a 15-year-old, she sets off for that big, wicked city of London, and she is duped into living in a brothel and becoming a prostitute. She ends up as part of Mrs. Brown's bawdy house. Finally, by the end of what is a long book, Fanny does rise back into respectability. When the book was published, it was denounced by the Bishop of London. Boswell, not a man who could talk, he visited brothels very frequently himself, called it a licentious and inflaming book. The novel is boisterous, erotic, part parody. It does parody Georgian society. And it's a book that looks at the philosophy of sensuality. What does sensuality actually mean? As a memoir, it is, of course, told by Fanny Hill herself. Now, the book had a very controversial and difficult publication history. Cleland wrote it in order to get out of debtor's prison. He was in a terrible financial mess. He thought turning out this novel might help his finances. Yes, it did get him out of debtor's prison, but before too long, he was called before the Privy Council, and he was made to answer for this naughty book that he had written. The book was eventually only published legally in the United States in 1963 and in England in 1970. And yet, somehow, even though it was always illegal, the book was kept in print and was read by generations of different people. It was even adapted for television in the year 2007 by that absolute veteran of BBC classic dramas, Andrew Davies. He wrote the script for the television adaptation. Evidently, when they called for actresses to take on the main part of Fanny Hill, over 70 different actresses turned up wanting the part. And the first episodes gave BBC its biggest audience in a very, very long time. So Fanny Hill, that pornographic novel, still exerts its fascination. The book is a classic of erotic literature, although Cleland, interestingly, avoids naming any particularly explicit body parts. He writes instead of a wondrous machine or an engine of love which assaults Fanny's sensitive plant. It's intriguing to see how many different words he can use to get around avoiding the actual word that should be used. There's, of course, in the story, lots of rushing blood and heightened colour, always indicating sexual arousal. And the book is written in 18th century language, so to a modern reader seems old-fashioned and in ways rather quaint. John Cleland said that the book was a hymn to virtue disguised as a catalogue of vice. And he does in the book discuss virtues and study them. Virtues of purity, temperance, refinement. Fanny makes it clear all through the book that she hates vice. But what Cleland makes us think about in the book is what constitutes a vice and what constitutes a virtue. And those standards have, of course, changed since the 18th century. Fanny greatly disapproves of homosexuality, for example. He also has a client who wants to be whipped. He gets involved in sexual performance. So there's an audience watching what is going on. It's a book that I think is a history book in many ways, in that it gives us a glimpse into Georgian society. It's a book that is a study of one woman's psychology. It's a book that looks at the faults and the virtues of the 18th century world in London. You might have seen at some stage Hogarth's wonderful picture depicting the fall of a young woman who arrives in London. The country girl arrives, she's picked up by the mistress of a bawdy house who promises her a nice job. And of course, from that moment on, her downfall is ensured. It's a series of paintings called The Harlot's Progress. I think that John Cleland is doing in literature what Hogarth was trying to do in his art, and he has certainly created a classic book. Today, you can easily find Fanny Hill online. There are illustrations that have gone with it over the years. It is an intriguing book, and I think one of the great examples in world literature of an erotic novel.